Hello everyone, welcome back to TankFest 2017. Our next activity here on the stage is going to be a talk between some of our developers and our contributors. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over the microphone to Thane, Paul, and our contributors Harkonnen, Aging Jedi, and Quickie Baby.
Thank you, sir. So I think the great thing about Bovington is it brings fans and players and us, people involved with World of Tanks all together. This is a big opportunity for us. I'm really excited about it. We've had a chance to spend some time with these guys and several other contributors over the last several days, and I'm happy to be on this now on a stage, I guess, and on a stream, and be able to talk to you guys about stuff. We wanted this to be a dialogue, questions back and forth, a conversation. So I don't think we're taking like questions from Facebook Live or stuff like that. This is an opportunity for us to talk about what we've been doing and about where things have been going. So I guess Paul and I are here for you. If you guys have questions you want to ask, I'm guessing you might have one or two.
Where do we begin? Okay. So the first thing that I think is on the community's mind is the idea of escalating, arguably, performance of premium vehicles, that they might be getting more and more competitive in the new era. Obviously, with the preferential matchmaking being released from the vehicles, they seem to be getting stronger and stronger, and I think the outcry is that, are they getting too strong? Do you have anything to comment about this?
Maybe a little. And Paul's looking at me going, yeah, you're all over this. I think, look, let me just start with, to be clear, and Slava said this on the stream yesterday too, I think especially with the Defender, we realized that we took that one too far. But there's rationale around how we got here. The Defender, and then on some level the Chrysler, those things in particular, there was a lot of outcry about, Jesus, these things are super powerful. What's going on? It's hard to, and it's not just power, right? It's actually armor, right? It's hard to pen them. It's hard to defeat them. They bounce a lot of stuff. The reason that we put those out wasn't just because we wanted to create some premiums that had heavy armor. It was actually alongside some other changes we made in the game with other heavy armored vehicles, the Mouse and the top-end Japanese heavies in particular, the 4 and the 5. Of course, because the Defender and the Chrysler are ones that people pay for, those are the ones that people notice and go, wait, what the hell are you doing? But the goal was to build armor into the game. And so we did this with some non-premiums and with some premiums. And now with the Mouse and with the 4 and 5, those are getting now some tuning back down again, some nerfs. The Defender, the Chrysler, and I'll talk about the Chrysler the Defender specifically, because the Chrysler, and we can talk about the Chrysler.
Yeah, you definitely can.
Isn't maybe as OP as some people are thinking it is. It's just not something meant to be shot from the front is all. But the Defender in particular, again, it went further. With the Mouse and the 4 and 5, we're going to take those things down again. Not all the way down, but, a little bit of a nerf. With the Defender, we're just not bringing that back into the game's sales for a while. We're going to do some work on the armor mechanic. We're going to do some tuning. When it's to the point where we feel like that'll be not OP and it feels like it'll be reasonably competitive, then we can bring it back into the universe. But for now, we're leaving it off to the side.
Fantastic. Thank you for the response. Can you elaborate a little bit? You said that you would tune down the Mouse and the Type 5 Heavy. I'm not looking for specifics. Obviously, that's for another discussion. But is it that you found, have you looked at statistical data and found that they are overperforming a little bit? How is it? Can you provide some kind of an insight as to how this process takes place?
Yeah. Paul, do you want to talk about how we sort of analyze data, how we've looked at these things? No, but just in general.
Analyzing data is a very big question, and there's too much data to go into. But on the ones you're talking about, for too long we had penetration and damage, alpha, DPM controlling the battlefield, and armor becoming almost negligible. Angling was losing its basis. But apart from the impenetrable turrets on a couple of tanks, there really wasn't much point in learning positional play. The move was there to give armor its position back on the gameplay. When we did that, there were a couple of things that happened. The first one was in the mouse in particular, although we increased its survivability, its efficiency, so damage absorption, its deflection, and just hit points, penetration, we also overcooked its offense ability. So it turned out to be not only really good at taking threat, it was also really good at dealing threat, which isn't particularly where we wanted it to be. But the Type 4 and the Type 5s, they were terrible tanks. Like, absolutely terrible tanks. And they were rebuilt, and their armor pattern was changed, and they do have some weak spots. But again, we overcooked it. We need to go back and figure it out, particularly because we also added the bigger guns to it. The Defender 252, there's an armor pattern issue with its lower plate and its gun depressions and turrets slightly too OP. Its DPM is slightly set off because its rate of fire is lower, but in the hands of a lower skilled player, that tank overperforms at tier 8. It vastly underperforms at tier 10, but then again, you know, IS-6 doesn't see tier 10, so, you know, it's not apples for apples. What we do is we have a lot of data, and we actually have multiple sets of data. We have the statistical data, which you can look at and compare, and you can look at what you know, a tank is supposed to do. They're not actually completely honest, those data, because they're sort of compounds of how the simulator actually works. And so sometimes there's a number, when actually below the number there might be 12 numbers that he's having to profile out. So while the statistics give you an idea how the tank performs, they don't give you the whole picture, although they give you a pretty good one. And we have metadata. That's the collection of millions of battles of all different skill sets in all different conditions, and from that we can mine the data and see where it's going. Issue with metadata is you have to have the battles, and you have to have all the different variances, and then you need to be able to understand and analyze the data, because if you're not, you can make some very bad decisions. Then you have the predictability data, which happens in battles. You know, battles aren't even. The tiering, the map, which base you spawn at, which game type you're playing, the skill sets of the players, the combination of the tank types, which also adds to it. And then the thing that almost all the contributors are really strong at, and to be fair, loads of our players are strong at, is institutional knowledge. And institutional knowledge is incredibly powerful. And so you talk to a good tanker, and they can give you some very strong instinctive feedback on almost every tank in the game and what they think you should and shouldn't do. And invariably, they want to change just the stats. That's why they do it. So that's the sort of story of how it comes about. What we do is we look at the stat of the tank, and we look at the real stats that are in the XML files that we put together. We do our best to get the narrative and figure out what we're going to do with it. We do our best to position the tank correctly. We then cook it, patch it, put it out, and go out there. And more often than not, we're happy with the results. But a few times, we get it wrong, and sometimes very wrong. What's happened here is we've changed super heavies, we've changed armor, we've changed artillery, we've changed matchmaker, and it's put it all together, and it's made add light tanks, it's made the picture less clear. We've now been combing through the data, and we can now show to our own satisfaction that the mouse in the hands of anyone is currently overperforming at every skill level. From the lowest skill level player to the highest skill level, the mouse is doing better than it's ever done. So clearly, that's gone too far. And so now we need to bring it down. And we need to look at things like penetration required to get through it, whether standard ammo should be able to get through it, and at what area, how much positional play you have to do against it, what's offense power. And so all that data gets put together, it gets analyzed, and then we go through all the things we can do about a tank. And that's how we will rebalance the Type 4, the Type 5, the mouse, and actually lots of other tanks. Because we have some other tanks that are heavy tanks that are also underperforming. They're not doing their armor job. A special call out to the Black Prince on the British line, which was horribly, horribly butchered when we took it to HD. But that's how we do it. We have a lot of data. In fact, I shared a little bit of the data before we came on here with the good contributors here, just to give them comfort you know, that it isn't just people in a room with brandy and cigars. Like, there is a lot of drive behind it and a lot of thought.
I'm sure that's the case, really.
I would, if you can point me to the brandy and cigars room, I'd be really happy.
Well, actually, going on top of that as well, we are completely overhauling how we're going to be doing tanks getting to people going forward. It's an industrial process, so the tanks that are arriving now and the changes are now are sometimes months ago when they were planned and put in. So now we've got a much better understanding of when they should be arriving, what they should be doing, what's their purpose when you put them in the game, how can we set expectations, match it to the data, test data, and then how can we adjust it so that the tank gives you what you expected and gives the game-playing people what they expected. We're still going to make errors, but we've learned from these last couple that we need to do better balance and checks and more rounded observations with them. So although it's painful when you can't penetrate the mouse right now and it beats you to death from a long distance with a sniper gun, you know, we hopefully won't be doing it like that going forward, he said knowingly.
Yes.
And can we say that you learned with all of this drama and all of these things in the last few months? And we had Wargaming 2 years ago communicating a lot, and we went through a quiet time. It seems like you detached yourself from the community. We had our conversations and everything, and I truly honestly believe that you are moving forwards in the positive direction. How can you show that to the players? What is going to improve in terms of communication, just a little bit to reassure them?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, exactly as Paul said, there's... So look, I'll back up for a minute, you know, to where we were a couple of years ago. I think a couple of years ago, we were terrible at this. I mean, we didn't communicate anything really at all. You know, a patch would come out, we'd lob out patch notes. They would be maybe intelligible, maybe not. There wouldn't really be any explanation of why anything had happened, right? And early on, you know, the beginning of last year, I think we really tried to go on a bit of a crusade actually to fix that. Especially, I mean, I think even in Russian-speaking territories, even in CIS, this was actually a problem. But it was especially a problem, an even bigger problem in Europe, in North America, where there's just the level of information wasn't coming through at all. And we tried really hard to fix that and to go in and start meeting people at events like these, at PAX, at other events that we would put together, at Gamescom, at any of these big shows, and really start engaging and saying, hey, here's what we're thinking about, here's why we're doing it, here's where we think we're going. And I think actually we did a good job at that, especially on feature set stuff. Again, you know, think about last year. I think we did a pretty good job with that. But I think where we fell down, especially actually, really was in explaining a lot about individual tanks that were coming out, where things were going, and some of our balance things. A lot of that is because that thinking was evolving. Like, we knew where we wanted to go with features. We were still investigating a lot with balance and with not just individual tanks, but with sort of the meta of where do we want it to go, what do we want it to do. I mean, we knew we wanted armor to mean something. And I think we talked about that even a year ago. It's just how that gets expressed in the game can be very different. But I think clearly, you know, if you look at where we've been especially over the last few months, we didn't do a good job of explaining this. We didn't do a good job of explaining the fact that we wanted armor to matter and that we were going to be making these kinds of changes to the mouse, to the 4 and 5, introducing some of these new premiums. We talked in the past about wanting to get away from the old world where premiums were just inferior vehicles. You know, that it's not really fair to somebody to ask them to pay money to us for a tank and then have it kind of suck. And so now, you know, and we then started thinking about premiums in the same way that we thought about non-premiums and treated them the same way. You know, good, bad, strengths, weaknesses, a role, a purpose. But we didn't explain that as well as we should have. And I think part of that is because we were so focused on the 918 stuff and 919 and all these changes. we took our eye off the ball on this particular part of it a little bit. We were working on doing the things and not doing as good of a job as we needed to about explaining it. And I think we fell down hard there, and that's why we're trying to get back and fix this. It's unfortunate. Sometimes it takes a real slap in the face to realize where you're missing it, and I think this unfortunately has been that thing for us. And we've realized it, and that's why we're trying to have a deeper dialogue with the contributors, with the players, and get back to the journey that I think we have been on, again, overall, over the last year plus. Get back to doing that more.
So some of these changes that come in tend to give unexpected results when they go live, or a new tank suddenly performs differently than you expected. What could you do in the testing process to try and make that better, or give us a bit of insight into why testing processes sometimes give totally different results to live?
Sure. So I think, you remember last year we initiated the sandbox. And that was an important step for us because we really wanted to start getting feedback from players that was real and meaningful at a time that we could actually do something with it. Because by the time you get to super test and common test, all you're doing is triage level fixing. If you're making changes to something a month before it's live, those are really tiny changes because you just can't. The risk of it screwing up something much bigger, even just technical screw-ups, is so high. So introducing the sandbox was a way to try to start getting data and input and involvement and real play pattern stuff earlier. One of the problems we had is it turns out we weren't always getting real data. People don't play on the sandbox the way that they play with their real accounts, when their stats are on the line, when their reputation is on the line, right?
Yeah, that's so true, that point there.
Yeah, there was a lot of YOLO, right, going on. And a lot of just, hey, this is a new tank, I'll screw around with it and I'll experiment. So, part of our challenge has been getting the right kind of data, even if we had the right kind of avenues for it. We also found, with a lot of our folks who are on the early tests for a lot of these tanks, they're really, really high-end players. And they also tend to be just really in CIS territories in Russia, where the game is fast and hard, man. It can be fairly brutal. So what you've got is a bunch of guys who are the highest of the high-end players who are playing in a very specific play style. And that doesn't give us the kind of reaction that we need all the time. We can miss things. Honestly, the response from the playtesters on the Defender was not really that bad. In part because those guys know very well how to deal with a tank like that. They know how to circle around. They know how to, to stump the lower plate if they want to, and if they can't, how to make it move. They know how to handle it. So we didn't get the same kind of warning bells that we need. So what that means is we need to do a better job of getting more diverse feedback earlier. Part of that for us is going to be involving more people earlier on. One of the things we certainly talked about with you guys was getting you guys involved personally and being a part of that. We want to make sure that we're getting a representative data set, which means regions, which means player skill levels, player quality, player interests, all of that to really go into how we inform these the new premiums, especially going forward. Because we realize, right now we need to earn back some trust, and so we're going to be cautious about these things going forward, and we're just going to work on this and try to make sure that we're getting the feedback as early as we can, and then either we make changes if we feel like the feedback, this is valid, we need to make changes. And if we feel like it's not valid and there's actually something else that makes it okay that whatever is happening, that we're having that dialogue and that then everybody can understand the rationale for why we're doing something, rather than just going, no, it's the right answer, it's okay, they'll figure it out. Because I think that's the other mistake that we've made, is leaving too much to, players will figure it out if you let them play with it enough.
Once you'd moved from predictability tanks are just clones. They have exactly the same stats. Once you move to allow it to have customization and a character, then you start getting unpredictability, and you start moving into areas that you can't see as well. This is what happens when you change artillery. You're not just changing arc, distance travel, velocity, penetration, splash. You're now adding accuracy and, stun. That's a significant change. Putting light tanks in, significant change. The game's also a worldwide game, so there are regional differences in play style and expectation. And more importantly, we needed to reconnect with the tanker voice. There are multiple types of tanker. There are people who don't want to spend money, but enjoy tanks. They'll spend a little bit, maybe here and there, but they want to enjoy their tanks. There are compulsive tankers. There are competitive tankers. Now, I split them up into 16 subcategories, where it's like, are you a lone wolf or a social player is like the first vector. I'm a lone wolf, but not everybody is. And then, are you hyper-competitive? Are you playing because it's just fun? That doesn't mean you're not competitive, but logging in and having a good time is more important than protecting your stats. And then within those 4 quadrants, I think you're either a role player, where you put camo on a heavy tank because you think it's important, regardless of its stats. Your tanks have got names. You tell little stories about how you've been in battles. When you can be a role player, or are you a power player? It's just all about raw power. I don't really care about anything else. There's no joy in what I do. And then I think you have the unlockers, the completists, who unlock everything on every tank tree, regardless of whether they're going to use it. And then you have the people who are, trying to speed play. And I think within that category, that's 16 different types of tanker. And I think what we had fallen foul of is we had forgotten to remember about these tankers and to put them into our consideration bucket for how we were going to put features in and how we were going to put new ideas in and how we were going to balance tanks. And for me, when I came to Wargaming, I already had 20,000 battles. And I brought a big long list of questions. And I was in North America, and we decided to make community videos that were tankers talking to tankers about tanks. So, we did a video about one of the free toy tanks at Tier 2. And the name of the video was about that free garage slot we've given you. Because I play the hell out of tanks. And I know exactly what was going to happen. A new toy tank was going to turn up. Matchmaker was going to be borked. I was going to log in. I was going to look at it. And I was only going to make one decision. Am I going to keep it as a collector or get a free garage slot? And so we talked about it like that. Well, when we did that within the company, that was revolutionary. That was a style of communication that had never been done before. You forward fast from where we are now, and you realize that the company's doing a lot better. People are a lot more receptive to that idea that there are different types of tanker, that there is life below Tier 8. And, we've done a lot of, when I was at BioWare, we used to call them poo goggles. So you imagine that everyone's looking through the game through goggles that are covered in poo. And it makes the game look terrible. So you need to wipe all the poo off the goggles. And then you can see the game for what it is. And if you actually look at the game, I hated going to crazy websites to download unknown mods to infest my machine just because I couldn't get a good colorblind mode, or because I wanted 2 carousel stacks in my garage. And so, I went on a burn going, can we just get this stuff in the game? And, I think the game's got more international. I think it's starting to think about different types of tankers. I think we still have some outstanding issues with some of the premiums and how we're designing them. But, it's tracking the right way. And we got to take our licks. The Defender's too much. Don't do it again. And then hopefully learn and not do it again.
Yeah, I think, the good thing is, admittedly, the Defender isn't the first overpowered premium to have ever shown up in the game. Once upon a time, the Type 59 was, right? I mean, and now it's a tank. It's okay. It's the meta changes, the game changes, things around it change. We'll find our moments with it.
And on top of that, the way the game plays moves.
Yeah.
The physics engine changed the way the game played. When we had new maps, it changed the way it's game. And I think what we've now come to the conclusion, we are of the mind that the original economy structure, the original play, earn, burn, needs to be revisited to make sure that it is a good economy structure for where the game is today. And that is apparent when you just look at some of the ways the economy is working out. The actual suspicion/anger over premium ammo is, an underlying question of, are you purposely trying to force me to burn loads of credits with the way you're designing the game?
Are you, Paul?
No, we're not. No, we're definitely not. We're not. But mathematically, you can find observational points in the way the game is currently built that makes you question the sincerity of the position I just stated. So we've got to go and have another look at it. We've got to be able to say it. So in game design terms, they talk about a tightness and looseness of economy. And, we have multiple economies in the game. We have the economy of experience. We have the economy of unlock and tank threads and how they're connected. And we have the economy of the earn, burn that you have doing battles. And, Slava has been very strong on, the most important lesson for ranked battles was the absolute proof that we need to now go back strongly on our economy and make it work. And what we want is people to be able to play tanks and enjoy it and feel like they're getting somewhere. And if they love it enough and they want to commit cash, then they should get time compression. Yeah. That's really what you're doing. If I'm cash rich and time poor, because I've got kids and I got a job, and you want to be able to commit with warmth. I want to be able to buy premium time, knowing that it's just screaming value for money, that I can be really happy about it. I want to be able to buy a premium tank because it feels right, not because I feel like I'm forced into it. And so, that is the underlying philosophy Slava has. We just now need to get through the game pieces and make it true.
So that's back to the brandy and cigars room and get that thrashed out then?
Say again? Sorry.
That's back to the brandy and cigars room to get that thrashed out.
Yeah. Well, it's so, the economy is a great example of it, right? And this is part of this again is lots of changes in a very short period of time, kind of stomping on each other. The changes that we made to the matchmaker, I think overall are great. I think the game it plays much better now. It's very rare for me to get into a match where I feel like I've just got no way to meaningfully contribute, no matter where I am on the tier chart, right? High, low, medium, whatever. Even as what historically my least favorite thing is, oh great, I'm a low tier heavy, right? In the old matchmaker, if I was a low tier heavy, it was, that's 15 minutes of my life I'm never getting back. I'm going to go get a sandwich, I would at least not be the guy who would throw myself off a cliff, right? Which some people did in those situations. But, I knew it wasn't going to be the most fun I've ever had in gaming, right? Now, even in that situation, I feel like I could do something. The challenge is the way that the matchmaker has changed. Now the credit economy changes. The amount of hit points that are in a battle are different. And therefore, the amount of silver that comes out of a battle are different. And we've seen this gulf, right, between where it was, what people were getting, and where they are now. And we need to restore that. We need to fix that and give people back the ability to get back to the kind of the income that they were having before. That's not, to Paul's point, that's not the evil brandy and cigars and kind of evil laughs room. That's just us making changes that had a bad impact that now we're going to fix.
Well, that's a fantastic and powerful admission, and that's, I think, the thing that the community are looking for in this whole aspect of communication and going forwards, if it's quickly identified. And we at least know that you're hearing us and that you're seeing the same game that we're seeing. And I think if that happens, then it'll be a much more positive experience for everybody. So
Anton Pankov, who I love very much, he and I both play an awful lot of tanks, and we both spend our own money. And so the two of us, when we talk, and I've got 9 accounts. It's even more absurd. And I have an account where I don't spend any money, just so I can punish myself. I have my drinking account for when I just want to have fun. And then I have an account that I restart every month, so I can see what the the opening missions are like. And that's how I discovered the training missions are broken.
That must be super painful.
Yeah, well, you know, but you've got to go through it. And then you have to have the conversations with people and go, well, you know, my non-spending account is currently stalled. Like, it's stalled. It's just not a lot of fun. And for me, you know, I love tanks. And I want as many people as possible to adore tanks and play tanks. So I get very frustrated when I hit a wall. And so does Anton. He's got the same thing about it. And every time we look at an update, the first thing he says is, can I not switch that feature on? And the first thing I say is, does it work in colorblind mode? Both of which, you know, and we're also very opinionated on our tanks and what we like and where we're going. The one thing I would want is better communication. I feel that when our designers are actually able to talk with people and walk them through where we're going, when we explain a feature, you know, it's heartbreaking when you've been working on something for months and really trying hard, and then it goes out, and because we perhaps didn't explain it very well, didn't give enough guidance, people have reacted on only what they can see. So improved equipment is a great example.
Yeah.
There was an idea, what if we could put improved equipment in the game? That just as an idea. And that's a really hard thing to do in our games, very complicated. It's much more complicated than it should be because the game engine is so old. And so we're scratching our heads going, well, how can we do it? What would it do? What are all the pieces required? At the same time, there was another idea. What if we had ranked battles where by filtering it made it a skill-based matchmaker, which is one of the big quests we get asked. And you go, well, I don't know whether we want to do that or not do that. That was very complicated. And so what happened is the two got conflated. And we brought out this tier 10 semi-skill sorted ranked battle event. And then we used it as a way of testing the improved equipment. And, you know, you put that together and it's actually very potentially toxic. And we did a terrible job of explaining what we were up to. And so from an observational level, you know, an optical level, you go, well, they're crazy. Whereas I'm in the meetings where we're talking about if new equipment is a go, what could we do with it? You know, and I've got this whiteboard of beauty and joy of all these things we can potentially do with it, but we're not ready to do it yet because we need to see whether it would even work. So I think communication, I think getting to the point where we can give a better idea of why we're doing things, where we're going, what we're thinking about, and you know, an understanding of what we're doing. RT platoons is another one. We put in the new artillery, and what we discovered is if you allowed artillery to platoon, there was a small group of people who were going to grief the hell out of absolutely everybody. And they were going to make the new RT changes a failure because they were just going to log in with 3 artillery and just blow everyone away. And what we wanted to do was the World of Warships system, where you have 1 artillery and 2 other people. But we just couldn't get it in time. So the choices were, don't do the artillery change, or come up with another answer. And so the other answer was, we'll just suspend artillery in platoons for now. Well, we probably should have told people that. It would have been helpful, because it looked like we just didn't care. Well, we generally did.
And look, and honestly, part of the reason we didn't was because we didn't know that the changes to Arty are the most significant changes that we've ever made to anything in the game when you come right down to it. I mean, a fundamental reset of it. It's not just a rework, it's a reset of what a class means, right? I mean, it's moving it from being sort of the ultimate, you know, distance damage dealer to being a support class. That is a complete reset. And so we had no idea. We had a suspicion that, hey, maybe, you know, 1 SPG platoon might be the right answer. But for all we knew, that could have been the wrong answer, too. Even that could have been a problem. So we took the most conservative route possible, right? Went, you know what? It's a soloist class right now. It's weird because it's a soloist class that's all about supporting a team, right? But that was the route we had to take because we really weren't sure what was going to happen. And so we did. To Paul's point, we probably could have been a lot more clear about all that. We could have talked about a lot more of this. But one of the things that's happened, you know, from the earliest days, after so many, over a long period of time, you know, missed expectations or failed promises or too many times of talking about things that were just a beautiful idea in some designer's head that never went anywhere, never became real at all, that led to, you know, anger, frustration, missed expectations, you know, the frustration of the community was super high about those things when we first came into this. And so we've been very conservative about trying to make sure that we only talk about things that we know are going to happen. And I think, you know, again, this is where maybe, you know, if the pendulum was over here, we've now gone too far and we need to get back a little bit to let people more into our heads about what we think might be possible and explain where we think the potentials are, but explain clearly that those are potentials and not promises yet.
But you, now with ranked battles and the bonds economy, it's a brand new economy you're going to bring into the game. When we had our discussions and the way you presented to us, it made sense, but it didn't present it the same way to the players.
Yeah.
Can you explain a little bit what's your idea with that economy, or?
Sure. Well, so with, I think with bonds, to start with that, right, it's really three things actually all at once that got introduced, right? Ranked battles, bonds, and improved equipment. So hitting those piece by piece. The thing that people are really upset about, really, and genuinely we agree, right, that are genuinely upset about, is the idea that if what we're going to do over the long term is allow the best players the ability solely and exclusively to buy equipment that makes them even better, that's bad. That's not the goal. And that's not the goal in multiple ways. Number one, with bonds, we actually want to be able to give players the ability to get to bonds through a variety of different activities, not just by being ranked battles, uber competitors, uber dominators. That's the only way you can get them right now, because we've just introduced the currency and we've just introduced them as a system that you can get here. We have a lot of plans for how to get to bonds over time. The other piece is we realize, and again, this, you know, we were testing improved equipment, the maximum that you could get with the beta season is two pieces. One good one and one, and that's like if you're the top end guy. Two pieces. And so we knew that what was going to be out there was going to be something that would allow us to test the efficiency of that equipment and how good or bad they were, you know, in terms of being powerful but not unbalancing. But not make it something where it was ubiquitous and that would be too hard to put the genie back in the bottle if we needed to. So we tried that, and we realized we like improved equipment, right? But we need to be able for this to be something that everybody has, and then we need to make it something that everybody has only so much of, so that where they put that equipment, which tank they put that on, where they equip it, what they do with it, is precious to them. It matters, right? It's meaningful. And when we're at the point where everybody, whether they're a super hardcore dominator or not, have the ability to get to that, then the heat, I don't think, will be there around this, because now it's a player choice rather than the rich getting richer in terms of skill.
Hello? Okay, I am back. So can I just say that was one of my biggest concerns, the idea of rewarding the most competitive players. And that's absolutely fantastic to hear that is arguably not going to be just the case, that only the 1% are going to be able to get this, and that there's going to be other ways to earn bonds in either other game modes or other events or so on and so forth. That's absolutely fantastic to hear.
And we told people when we put out the articles about ranked battles and about all that and improved equipment, we said it, but we didn't say it clearly enough, right? We said this is a test season. We're going to be testing everything from the way that you rank up to the rewards that you get, the economy of it, all these things. We said all of that was under evaluation, but again, we didn't let people into our heads at all about what kinds of things we were thinking about. Now, part of that is because you don't want to actually queer the experiment, right? Like if you tell people what you're testing for, it can change their behavior. And so that can be a challenge. But I think we were too cryptic, right,
But
in this particular case.
It could be an opportunity for you to get early feedback as well, see how
Yeah.
the community will react to those changes. So could you say you're going to be more open the way you communicate those changes a little bit?
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's really it. We have to be, again, if we pushed it too far, now we have to bring it back a little bit and be more clear about where we're going and what our thought process is.
And in terms of I don't know if Paul wants to say anything. In terms of for instance, the chevrons, I was going through some statistics on the Russian server, and the first player to get to rank 5 took him 19 battles, which is the bare minimum you have to get. It's 19 wins here and there, and this player, this considered quite a bad player, it took him 608 battles to reach rank 5. How are you going to address that? Are you going to make it a little bit more challenging for the skilled players? Or?
I don't think we want everybody to reach rank 5, to be totally honest, right? Like, the point of ranked battles is the best of the best get to the top, and the other ones get as far as their skill will take them. Now, yes, we're definitely looking into everything, including how many chevrons it takes to get up, what it takes to do that, how much you get out of that. Do we have the right balance in terms of how many players get a chevron in each battle versus how many stay the same, how many lose? But I think it would be a mistake. I think it'd be a mistake if the way it were set up was that everybody over the course of a month would get to rank 5, because that would defeat the purpose of are you a lion or are you a gazelle, which is kind of the fundamental question that ranked battles is asking.
There's a commitment reward, so we need to be good about giving commitment rewards. We need to be able to say, if you've played thousands and thousands of battles, unlocked hundreds and hundreds of tanks, then we need to find a way of saying, well done, thank you for staying around, thank you for being here. Bonds are a potential answer for something like that. There's also a paying person. So as a confirmed spender, it drives me crazy that there are tanks I'm not allowed to buy, that I can't unlock, that I can't get to, because I'm a lone wolf player who just wants to play randoms. Worse, most of those tanks are considered terrible, and the people who've got them don't like them. And I'm there going, I'll buy them. I'll buy every tier 8 clan tank you've got. No problem. So just put them in my garage.
You are basically Wargaming's favourite type of customer.
I'm a tank collector, and it's my one and only hobby. I spend about as much on tanks as I spent when I was collecting comic books, about as much as when I was getting PlayStation games, getting Xbox games. I don't spend any more. But for me, I want to be a spender. So there's a spender person that we need to look after. There's a free player that we need to look after. There's a heavy committed player. If you're a player who's got most of the tanks in our game, but you're still playing, there should be something for you. We have all these achievements, and if you look at our achievements, apart from a few of them, they're really length commitment achievements. 10 million damage will happen eventually. You know, we have a few, kill 5 such and suches that are almost impossible yet, but those others are commitment. Wouldn't it be great if they could be linked to rewards? And so this is the sort of thinking that's going on. But what we need is we need the systems and we need the data. I mean, for God's sake, it took us 5 years to put a button to the shop in the game. It's about as un-money grabbing as you can get to.
Which, admittedly, a number of people, even inside the team, were saying, no, man, if you do that, that's going to make us look like we're just a bunch of money grubbing whatever, right? So that, you know, for some people, it's like, of course you should put a button in the premium shop in the game, because that's easy and convenient. And for other people, it's like,
Again, it's balancing it between commitment, non-commitment.
Yep.
People who just want to play randoms, people who want to be very social, people who want to be very competitive, people who want to be in clans. We have to be able to service every player. I love 5, 6, 7, and a little bit of 8. I just play there. I've got 9s and 10s, but that's my favorite part of the game. And so for me, it's things like with the premium strategy. I want an American premium TD that's complementary to my crew. Like, it can't be that hard. But you know, everything in its time, everything in its place. You go and you have the meetings, and you seek guidance of where we're going, then you commit to the time and you get it out there. I like the idea that we have a colorblind mode. I resent greatly it doesn't work in the garage, and it doesn't work with the aiming reticle. I still can't tell when I'm reloaded. I still can't tell whether I can go through armor. I still can't tell where I'm aiming. And yet I've got the colorblind mode set to yes. I like every streamer who streams with the colorblind mode on, by the way. The number one way of making me switch a video off is when I log in and it's red. And we're here at Tankfest, and they've locked out all the settings, so you can't change them, but not one of them is on colorblind mode. So I couldn't win my Tiger 131. I'm very sad. I have to buy it now. Sorry.
I'm sorry, I might have to reconsider my position on streaming in colorblind mode now, Paul, so...
Yeah, some people like me like the colorblind mode just because it's a nice, relaxing color to actually look at. And I get a lot of people asking if I'm colorblind. I'm not. But I just got so used to playing in that for my viewers on YouTube, I really prefer it now and can't go back. So maybe rename it something else and just have it as a nice optional UI change.
I have this sort of crazy dream where you're able to go into tanks, and you know when you go into Tank Compare and you select something, and if it requires the suspension, it'll actually highlight it. I long for that to be on the normal tech tree. I long for the ability to look at a tank and then basically get everything you get on the wiki in the client. I long to be able to see recommendations from other people. I long to be told, do you like playing this tank? Then you might like playing this tank. I'd love to be told, careful, this tank you're about to unlock, different skill sets, different, ways of playing. I'd love to be able to look at a tank for it to say, you need to know how to hold down. Would you like to learn how to hold down? Click here. Like, there's loads of stuff we can do, and it'll all make the game more beautiful and more fantastic and wonderful. And it's like, we are doing it, slowly but surely. So you can imagine what tanks is going to be like in the future. It's going to be even more awesome. Sorry, I'm ranting now.
Okay. And speaking of making tanks beautiful, can I just ask you about maps? I know it's a big topic, and people are asking for more maps, and I think people just want more variety, and some are asking for the old maps back, not perhaps because they love the old maps, just because they'd like to see some different ones to the ones they're getting usually. So what's the situation with maps?
So maps, if you look at it, right, there's, I've sort of jokingly or fatalistically sometimes referred to it as the unholy trinity, right, of maps, matchmaker, and SPG were always the three things we would hear about. On the maps, the complaints, like you said, they boil down to, hey, can you bring back old maps that I loved that aren't there anymore? There's I don't like the design of certain maps. Certainly, especially a lot of people complain about the very corridory, narrow, windy kind of maps. And then there's lack of variety, right? I play the same freaking map over and over and over again. Now, the good thing is, that last part, actually, with the matchmaker, we also introduced some logic changes to where you would have...
he just noticed he's been calling me stupid this whole interview.
Well, I thought I'd better give him a break for a little while.
So we introduced changes to the matchmaker's logic about which maps you've played on. It's more mindful of what you've done. It also treats things like Runeberg and Winter Runeberg as the same map rather than completely different maps from the perspective of whether it's allowing you to go back in there. So we've seen a huge reduction in the number of repeat maps that people experience in a given night. I think everybody would say that's true. And that helped a lot, right? Because, look, we have like 40 maps in the game. Most other games don't have 40 maps. That's a lot of freaking maps.
That's one of the best things about your games is the variety in the maps and the fact that every different round feels different.
And the problem was that we had variety in a theoretical way, right? But in a realistic way, on a moment-to-moment, night-to-night basis, you didn't feel it. You play Himmelsdorf, 6 times in a night, and I love Himmelsdorf, but not 6 times in a night, right? So we fixed that. We addressed that part with the matchmaker, and we feel really good about that. The bulk of the work that's happening right now, in terms of sort of from the map creation department, is going to moving the maps into the new Core 5.0 stuff. the 5.0 tech is all there. There's some work the guys are doing about sort of perf optimization and things like that, especially to be able to support as low end as we can and so on at the highest sort of graphical level possible for it. But largely now the burden of that work is actually on the map department, right, on the art and design sides to reset, because there's a whole bunch of new tech that those things have to be able to use, right? They have to be enabled and rebuilt in order to use. So that's where the bulk of the map work is going right now. We have made changes. We've stopped pulling away maps. We haven't taken things out. We took a few out that, frankly, that people hated because they were windy, unpredictable corridor maps that just where you can kind of get shot in the ass from anywhere at any given moment. We removed those. In some territories, we just substantially reduced the frequency of them because the feedback we got from different regional offices was different about how to handle those sort of disfavored maps. But we've dealt with that. Once we get to the point where we get the core 5.0 stuff out with this, you know, huge batch of maps, with all these maps coming in their new glory, then we get to return to the job of reworking old maps, bringing back some old maps that people love, and building new maps that will make people not miss the old ones as much anyway as well.
Stealing maps from console.
Yeah.
They've got great maps. What happened there is we got into a thought process that looked statistically strong, and it looked community strong. But what it meant is we were losing maps.
Yeah.
So I would have preferred the question to be, please name the 3 maps you want us to take out of the game you can never see again. Because I think people may have voted differently if they realized they were suggesting the maps have been removed. We're going to move to really cool HD maps, and they are really cool. We need to make sure that when we do that, the amount of map availability is strong. And that's really the underlying theory.
Yeah, that's exactly what's taking the time right now, right? We want to make sure, again, having just solved the map variety problem once, we don't want to then turn around and recreate it just with HD maps, right? Because that would frustrate players. It would frustrate us because we finally just fixed the problem. And it would then make people feel a lot less happy about getting the benefit of the HD stuff anyway, right? If we sort of give you something and then slap you at the same time, that's not really a cool release strategy. So that's when we get to that point, right, where those are all ready, that's when we're going to push that out.
Yeah, you could do an entire 2-hour stream just on maps because it's so busy.
It could do. Is that something I need to do, Paul? Is it a 2-hour stream on maps?
I would happily do a 2-hour stream on maps.
2-hour map tactics stream from you. Yeah, there you go.
Okay, maybe. We'll see. I've asked everything that I wanted to. Have you guys got anything else that you want to add?
Well, there is one particular question I'd like to put to you, and would you consider the part of Shaggy in the next Scooby-Doo movie?
I think so. From the number of times I've been mistaken, I believe actually my next role is as TJ Wagner, the console EP. If I just get my voice a little bit more gritty, I might be able to pull it off. Sorry, TJ.
I'd like to give a big call out to the Minsk team, who I think are absolute superstars, and you know we don't often get to talk about them. They do some great work. They're in a very cold place. It's very cold in Minsk, and I've stolen some T-shirts for them because I don't see why only the Europeans should get them. So I'm going to bring them to you. Tanks is the only game I can beat my son at. So that's quite exciting. I quite like that. And my daughter's taking my photography this time, so it's great. So it's a family affair. I noticed that walking around. If you walk around the museum, you hear people saying, "That's Tier 9. I've got one of them." And you go, "Wow, it's amazing. We've brought life to the tank museum." I think they love it. So I love tanks. Everyone should love tanks. We're going to continue making it good. Come on in. The tanking's lovely, or it'll get lovelier.
Yeah. So. Look, thanks everybody. And as Paul said, I think honestly the team in Minsk is fantastic. There's a reason I'm spending about half my time there. I think Paul's spending a pretty similar amount. It's the honestly, if you see the passion and the drive and the dedication that the guys put in on an everyday basis, they are burning to get millions of new cool things out and get all these changes in, and if we could do it all at once, we absolutely would. But I honestly, the level of passion and dedication that all the team continues to show is honestly a huge part for me of the job satisfaction of this. You know, I feel like I'm working with a team that is absolutely in it to win it, absolutely cares about their players, and absolutely wants to do something great.
We want to give the contributors and streamers and people every excuse to talk about the happy side of the love affair of tanks.
Can you confirm that you have a happiness, player happiness department?
Look, we don't have a player happiness department. We have, I mean, honestly, from the CEO on down, we have a group of people who live that as a fact. Like, it's not just some bullshit slogan that gets printed on a wall somewhere. The fact is, look, we know at its core, if players aren't playing, then nobody's paying, right? And of course we want to be able to make money. It's a job. We're trying, you know, it is. But at the same time, we fundamentally know and believe that the best way to make that happen is to make a game that everybody loves and cares about. And the fact that, I mean, I joke sometimes, I have sort of the best and worst job in the industry because my CEO plays the game every day, and he plays it under his own name. And so when we are doing things that are making people happy, he's getting happy notes in chat. And so he tells me, hey, this is really good. And when the reverse is true, guess what, right? Like, I also get those phone calls. So it is a rare and wonderful thing, honestly, to be working in a company in the industry where player happiness is not just a punchline or a thing that we say in order to make players feel like we give a shit. It's actually what we do, and it's how we feel and what we believe in. And the fact that that is from the top all the way through the organization is what gets me up in the morning.
I think you basically just finished the interview with that. I mean, nothing that can be said can go on top of that. If it gets you up in the morning, then I think it's good enough for this, right?
Thank you, guys. Well, I guess we'll sign off. Thank you, guys. I honestly, again, thank you guys so much for coming. Thanks for engaging with us and giving us the chance to finally, even though it was overdue on our side, finally kind of explain what we've been doing, what we've been thinking about, and I hope that we do this. Well, I know that we will do this a lot more. That's a commitment from our side, to do this a lot more and to engage with you guys and therefore the community at large in a much deeper way going forward. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.